Looking back at our wedding photos always stirs up a mix of emotions. 20 years ago, Layla's smile lit up every frame, genuine, radiant, full of promise. Now that same smile only appears in carefully curated social media posts for her boutique business. I set down the leather-bound album and glanced at my phone. Another cancelled dinner date. Sorry, honey, supply emergency. The house felt emptier since Savannah left for college 3 months ago. I'd gotten used to the sound of her music floating down the hallway, her laughter during phone calls with friends, even her occasional teenage door slamming. Without her, the silence between Layla and me became deafening. Last week, I tried surprising Layla with concert tickets to see her favorite band. She barely looked up from her laptop, muttering something about a busy quarter and important deadlines. The tickets still sat on my dresser, a reminder of yet another failed attempt to reconnect. Our conversations had devolved into logistics, bills, house maintenance, and brief updates about Savannah. Even those were mostly conducted through texts or hastily exchanged words as Layla rushed out the door to another business meeting. The physical distance grew alongside the emotional one. Layla started going to bed later, citing work emails. She moved her morning routine earlier, leaving before I woke up. The casual touches, a hand on my shoulder, a quick kiss goodbye, vanished so gradually I couldn't pinpoint it when they stopped. During a recent video call, Savannah noticed something was off. "Dad, you look tired," she said, her forehead creasing with worry. I couldn't bring myself to burden her with the truth that her mother barely acknowledged my existence anymore, that our marriage had become a well-choreographed dance of avoidance. The turning point came around Layla's 40th birthday. I'd planned a surprise weekend getaway, something intimate and romantic. She showed up 3 hours late to the dinner reservation, spent most of the evening on her phone, then announced she had to fly out early the next morning for an unexpected business opportunity. Tonight, I sat alone at our kitchen island, pushing around leftover takeout. Layla's perfectly organized calendar hung on the fridge, packed with appointments, meetings, and social events. Not a single slot marked for us, for our marriage. I pulled out my phone and typed out a message. "Can we talk?" Simple, direct. My thumb hovered over the send button. The 3 dots appeared. She was typing something else. Having drinks with potential investors don't wait up. I deleted my message and set the phone face down. The house felt like a museum of what we used to be. Family photos on the walls, vacation souvenirs on shelves, all preserving moments that seemed to belong to different people now. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was watching the woman I loved transform into someone who looked right through me, someone who treated our marriage like an inconvenient footnote in her personal success story. Each morning, I woke up hoping today would be different, that Layla would finally see me again. Each night, I went to bed knowing tomorrow would bring more of the same. Savannah stormed into my study, clutching an old laptop. Her face flushed with anger. She slammed it on my desk. "Dad, what the hell is this?" I found it while looking for those old vacation photos Mum promised. My stomach dropped as she flipped open the screen. Explicit images and forum posts about dominance filled the display. Blood rushed to my face, not from guilt, but from confusion. "Savannah, that's not mine." I adjusted my reading glasses, leaning closer to examine the screen. "Where did you find this?" "In Mom's craft room closet." Whew. She crossed her arms. I thought, God, I'm sorry, Dad, I jumped to conclusions. The realization hit us both simultaneously. This was Layla's laptop. My hands trembled as I navigated through the browser history. Forums, blogs, private messages, all centered around female domination and controlling relationships. "Dad," Savannah's voice softened. There's more. Look at the email. An account I'd never seen before filled the screen. Hundreds of exchanges between Layla and someone called Madam V. My throat tightened as I clicked the most recent thread. Dearest Layla, the email read, your husband's compliance issues stem from lack of proper conditioning. Here's your next steps to ensure complete submission. The words blurred before my eyes. 20 years of marriage, and I didn't recognize the woman described in these messages. Madam V's instructions felt like ice in my veins, detailed plans to manipulate and control me, to break down my self-worth. She's been following this woman's advice for months, Savannah said, scrolling through older emails. Look at the dates. It started right after I left for college. Each message revealed more of Madam V's influence. Suggestions to withhold affection, create financial dependence, isolate me from friends and family. The blueprint for my systematic breakdown lay bare on the screen. Oh, all those times she said she was working late, my voice cracked. She was studying this, planning this. Savannah placed her hand on my shoulder. Dad, we need to do something. This Madame V person, she's poisoning Mum's mind. I closed the laptop, my mind racing. The distance between Layla and me these past months suddenly made sense. The subtle changes in her behavior, the cold shoulders, the increasing demands, all carefully orchestrated by an unseen puppet master. I never wanted to believe she'd changed, I admitted. I kept making excuses, thinking it was empty nest syndrome or work stress. Savannah paced the room. We can't let her get away with this. That Madam V person is basically running a cult. I stared at the closed laptop, years of memories colliding with this new reality. The woman I married, the mother of my child, had been methodically plotting to reshape our marriage into something unrecognizable. First, we document everything, I said, my engineer's mind kicking into problem-solving mode. Then we figure out who this Madam V really is. I never thought I'd find myself in a lawyer's office discussing the end of my marriage. Yet here I was, sitting across from Marlo Hayes, one of the city's top divorce attorneys. Her office radiated authority, dark wood panels, law books lining the walls, and a view of downtown that probably cost as much as my car. I placed Layla's laptop on her desk and pulled out the USB drive containing screenshots of everything we'd found. My wife, she's been following this online personality called Madam V. The messages show she's been deliberately trying to control and manipulate me. Marlo's gray eyes narrowed as she examined the evidence. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, taking rapid notes. And she's made threats about divorce? Just last week, said if I didn't get with the program, she'd leave me with nothing. No house, no savings, nothing. My voice cracked slightly. I've worked so hard for 20 years. Stop right there! Marla held up her hand. First thing, Layla clearly doesn't understand divorce law in our state. We're an equitable distribution state. That means fair division of marital assets, regardless of who earned what. She leaned forward, her short black hair catching the afternoon light. In fact, her business success could work in your favor. The court considers the sacrifices you made supporting her career, those late nights you watched Savannah while she networked, the times you put your own advancement on hold. That all counts. Really? The knot in my stomach loosened slightly. Absolutely. And these messages, she gestured to the screen. They demonstrate a pattern of emotional abuse and manipulation. Documentation is crucial. Keep gathering evidence, but do it carefully. Don't let her know you're preparing. What about the house? Joint marital property. She can't just kick you out or force a sale without court involvement. Marlo's expression softened slightly. Grayson, her threats are just that. Threats. Empty ones. legally speaking. She's counting on your ignorance of the law to maintain control. I sat back, processing this information. For weeks, I'd been living under the shadow of Layla's implied threats, thinking she held all the cards. Finding out she was bluffing, it was like finally being able to breathe again. So, what's my next move? Keep documenting everything. Save emails, texts, record conversations if legal in your location. But most importantly, don't tip your hand. Let her think her tactics are working. The more evidence we gather of her behavior, the stronger our position. I nodded, already feeling more centered than I had in months. Knowledge really was power, and for the first time since discovering Layla's secret life, I felt like I was regaining some control over my own. I decided to play along with Layla's demands, watching her behavior grow increasingly controlling and domineering. Each morning, she'd leave detailed lists of chores and tasks, expecting full compliance by the time she returned from work. I'd silently complete them while documenting everything in my journal. The bathroom needs deep cleaning, and don't forget to prepare my protein smoothie exactly how I specified, she'd bark before heading out, not even bothering to look at me anymore. I noticed how she'd check her phone constantly during dinner, smirking at whatever messages she was receiving. Her attempts at humiliation became more overt, criticizing my cooking, my clothes, even how I sat at the table. One evening, while pretending to be absorbed in household tasks, I overheard her on the phone in her study. Yes, he's becoming much more compliant. Your methods are working perfectly, Madam V. The real shock came when I was backing up our shared cloud storage. A new folder appeared, TM Business Proposals. Inside were dozens of intimate emails between Layla and Travis Maya, a sales rep she'd met through her boutique. The exchanges made my stomach turn. You're exactly what I need, a real man who knows how to take charge, Layla had written. Travis's response was equally nauseating. Can't wait to show you what a real bull can do. Your husband won't know what hit him. Attached were explicit photos they'd exchanged. My hands shook as I documented everything, copying the evidence to a secure drive. Savannah came home from college that weekend. I hadn't told her about the latest discoveries, but she could tell something was wrong. Dad, what's going on? You look terrible, she said, pulling me aside after dinner. In my home office, I showed her the emails, her face flushed with anger as she read through them. The bastard Travis. I've met him at Mum's store openings. He's always had this smug look. Now I know why. She grabbed my hand. Dad, you don't deserve any of this. We need to make them pay. I'm gathering everything, sweetie. The lawyer says we need to be patient. I'll help you. I can monitor Mom's social media accounts. She probably doesn't realize I can see her activity through our shared Netflix account. Having Savannah's support made me stronger. While Layla drifted further into a fantasy world of dominance and affairs, my daughter and I grew closer, united in our determination to expose the truth. Keep playing alone, Dad, Savannah advised. The more they think they're winning, the harder they'll fall. I sat at my desk late into the night, methodically organizing the mountain of evidence against Layla into neat digital folders. Each click of the mouse felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. Financial statements showing suspicious transfers to accounts I'd never known about. Screenshots of her explicit conversations with Travis. Photos that made my stomach turn. Marlo had given me a secure cloud storage account where I uploaded everything, ensuring multiple backups existed. She'd warned me that Layla might try to destroy evidence once confronted. My phone buzzed, another controlling text from Layla about some new household rule she'd invented. I barely felt anything anymore when reading her messages. The pain and confusion had given way to a strange emptiness. I remembered how I used to rush to accommodate her every whim. desperate to make her happy. Now I just documented each demand in my journal with clinical detachment. Savannah helped me track Layla's financial dealings, her tech skills proving invaluable. We discovered Layla had been siphoning money from her business into a private account for months. The timestamps matched perfectly with her intensifying relationship with Travis. "Look at this, Dad," Savannah pointed to her screen one evening. "She's been researching divorce lawyers who specialize in high-conflict cases." The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent hours combing through old emails, text messages, and bank statements. Each new piece of evidence revealed more of Layla's calculated deception. The woman I'd loved for 20 years had become a stranger. Or maybe I was finally seeing who she'd been all along. Marlo coached me through securing copies of all important documents. The moment she realizes you know, she'll try to control the narrative. She warned during our last meeting. We need everything ready before she makes her move. I installed security cameras in our home office and craft room after discovering Layla going through my personal files late one night. The footage showed her methodically photographing documents when she thought I was asleep. Each betrayal should have hurt, but I felt nothing except the cold determination to protect myself and Savannah. The journal entries tracking Layla's psychological manipulation filled dozens of pages. Reading them back felt like studying a case file rather than my own life. The pattern was clear now, how she'd gradually isolated me from friends, controlled our finances, and undermined my confidence through subtle criticism disguised as concern. Savannah found more evidence of Travis's involvement, hotel receipts, hidden email accounts, burner phone records. "She's planning something big, Dad," she said one evening. "These messages with Travis talk about taking control and the perfect setup." I nodded, adding the information to our growing collection. The gentle, accommodating husband they thought they could manipulate was gone. In his place stood someone much colder, someone willing to fight back with every legal weapon at his disposal. Every evening, I backed up new evidence to multiple secure locations. Marlo's paralegal helped me organize everything chronologically, building an airtight case that would leave no room for Layla's manipulations. The more I prepared, the more my emotional attachment to Layla faded, replaced by strategic focus. I could sense Layla's growing frustration as her usual tactics failed to provoke a reaction from me. Each time she tried to bait me into an argument, I remained calm and documented her behavior. My apparent compliance seemed to both please and unsettle her, exactly as Marlo had predicted. I sat at our kitchen table, pretending to read the morning paper while waiting for Layla to make her move. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. She'd been pacing around the kitchen for the past 10 minutes, rehearsing whatever speech she'd prepared. "We need to talk about some changes," Layla finally said, sliding into the chair across from me. Her manicured fingers drummed against the wooden surface. I folded the newspaper and set it aside, maintaining my facade of ignorance. "What kind of changes?" "Travis is going to be spending more time here. A lot more time." Her voice grew stronger, more authoritative. "And you're going to make yourself useful while he's here." My stomach churned at her audacity, but I kept my expression neutral. "Useful how?" "You'll clean up after us, service us, and..." She pulled out a small box from her purse, sliding it across the table. "You'll wear this. It's non-negotiable." Inside was a metal chastity device, the ultimate humiliation she'd planned with her lover. I let the silence stretch, watching her squirm slightly under my steady gaze. Then I reached for my phone, placed it on the table, and dialed Travis's number on speaker. "What are you doing?" Layla's eyes widened. "Hey, Travis," I said as he picked up. Layla's just telling me about your little arrangement. Why don't you join the conversation?" "Grayson, what the fuck?" Travis sputtered on the other end. "I've read all your emails, seen your photos. Those hotel receipts you both tried to hide?" My voice remained eerily calm. "Tell me, does your wife know about your female domination fetish?" Layla's face drained of color. "How did you—" "Oh, I know everything. The Madam V consultations, the manipulation tactics, your little fantasy of turning me into your servant." I pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the table. "It's all here." "You can't prove anything," Travis blustered through the phone. "And if you try anything, I'll—" "You'll what?" I cut him off. "Your wife already knows. I sent her copies of everything this morning, and your regional manager at Morton Supply. He's probably reading through your company email right now, especially those messages you sent Layla during work hours." A strangled sound came through the speaker. "Your reputation at work, your marriage, your entire life as you know it, it's all crumbling as we speak." I leaned closer to the phone, "and there's nothing you can do about it." Layla sat frozen, her carefully constructed plan lying in ruins around her. The box with the chastity device still sat between us, a pathetic symbol of her failed power play. "Grayson, please," she whispered. "No!" I stood up, gathering the folder. "You don't get to beg. Not anymore." I sat in my home office, scrolling through emails when my phone buzzed. Another message from Layla. Third one today. I clicked delete without reading it. The last few weeks had been a blur of activity after I confronted her and Travis. She'd initially tried to deny everything, then switched to tearful apologies when she realized how much evidence I had. But I felt nothing watching her cry. The woman I'd loved for 20 years had become a stranger to me. Her parents called shortly after she moved in with them. Her mother's voice cracked with disappointment as she asked what had happened to her daughter. I gave them the sanitized version, the affair, the manipulation, the financial deceptions. Left out the more sordid details about domination and their plans for me. They didn't need that mental image of their daughter. Savannah kept me updated on the neighborhood gossip. Layla's carefully crafted image as the successful businesswoman and perfect wife was unraveling. Her boutique's sales dropped as word spread. Several of her social circle publicly distanced themselves. She'd built her life on appearances. And now, those facades were crumbling. The divorce proceedings began with a whimper, not a bang. Layla's lawyer, an aggressive type who specialized in taking husbands to the cleaners, started with veiled threats about my emotional abandonment, leading to her infidelity. Marlo shut that down fast. "I have here," Marlo said during mediation, sliding a thick folder across the table, "extensive documentation of Mrs. Beckett's activities over the past year, including some rather explicit communications with her lover about their plans for her husband." Layla's face went ash white. Her lawyer flipped through the pages, his expression souring with each turn. "There's more where that came from," Marlo continued. "Financial records showing diverted business funds, emails discussing plans to isolate and manipulate Mr. Beckett, and photos that I'm sure Mrs. Beckett would prefer not become part of the public record." I kept my face neutral, watching Layla squirm. She tried catching my eye, silently pleading. I focused on a spot on the wall behind her head. "Perhaps," her lawyer said stiffly, "we should discuss a more equitable settlement." The meeting concluded quickly after that. As we left the conference room, Layla grabbed my arm. "Gray, please. We can work this out. 20 years of marriage has to mean something." I gently removed her hand. It meant everything to me. That's why this hurts so much. It was the first direct sentence I'd spoken to her in weeks. I walked away, leaving her standing there with tears streaming down her face. I wasn't expecting to see her again, not like this. When I opened the door that cool September evening, there she stood, Layla. But not the Layla I had once known. Her hair, usually so perfectly styled, was thrown into a messy bun. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, like a poor attempt to cover up the fact she'd been crying for hours. She wore sweatpants, of all things. The irony hit me painfully hard. Layla, the woman who couldn't step outside without looking polished to perfection, was now standing on my doorstep, completely undone. "Alicia." Her voice cracked, barely a whisper, pleading already. She didn't even wait for me to say anything. I couldn't. I just stared at her, feeling that numbness take over, that cold detachment I'd perfected these last months. She stepped toward me, her eyebrows pulled together in desperation. I hated that look she gave me, the one where she played the victim when in truth she'd stood as the puppet master all this time. "Please, I'm sorry," she muttered, her voice shaky. I need your help with Savannah. She's not speaking to me. She's ignoring my texts and calls. You're the only one who can help fix this." I crossed my arms against my chest, leaning against the doorframe. Of course, it wasn't about me. It was never about me. That familiar feeling of being a ghost in her world crept back, but I didn't let it overwhelm me. No, that feeling just fueled my resolve. "You thought this through before you ran to Travis, I'm sure," I said flatly. Her tears picked up speed as she struggled to speak. "Grayson, please. I know I messed up. I lost everything. Julia, Savannah, my business is falling apart. I know this all sounds like it's too little too late, but I don't know what to do anymore." She'd brought her hands together, wringing them nervously like that would somehow wring out the guilt, the shame, the choices she made against us. Where was that vulnerability during all those months when I was trying to be more than just an accessory to her curated life? She didn't seem lost then. I stepped past the threshold toward her. "You? Lost?" I scoffed, shaking my head, pity nowhere to find its way out. "No, Layla, you knew exactly where you wanted to go, just that you never gave a damn if you left any of us behind to get there." Her breath hitched as I spoke. I wanted to feel something for her while she stood there weeping. But there was nothing left. "Savannah made her decision. She wants nothing to do with you, and I'm not going to try and clean up your mess this time." And tears became heavier, but I'd seen those kinds of tears before, crocodile tears, an afterthought of someone who was sorry that it had all unraveled, not for the heartbreak she'd left in her wake. Not enough to care when it mattered. "Don't do this. Grayson, please. If you won't forgive me, don't make me lose Savannah." I straightened, pushing down any tiny remnants of pity trying to make their way up. There would be no more compromises, no more bending to accommodate her selfishness. I'd done my share, played the loving but distant husband role for far too long. "You brought this on yourself, Layla." My voice cut through her sobs like ice. "You made your bed." She stifled a sob, bringing a hand up to wipe her face. She had nothing more to say, clearly, had never been one for eloquent apologies anyway. The truth was she wasn't looking for forgiveness. She was looking for someone, me, to sweep away the wreckage she had caused. But I wasn't that man anymore. Maybe I never should have been. I stepped back inside, leaving her standing there, barely a shell of the woman I spent 2 decades with. The moment I closed the door, it felt like locking up an old, decaying chapter of my life. There were no lingering emotions, no doubts. that was the end. Finalizing the divorce felt more like relief than anything. You'd think after 20 years there'd be some sort of emotional fallout, or maybe I'd mourn what once was. But those feelings had already been eroded over months, even years. Signing the last paper, shaking Marlowe's hand as we parted ways, it was closure. Legal, sure, but closure nonetheless. I secured the house, finally got everything in order, and began focusing on the most important thing to me, Savannah, my daughter, my priority. She moved back into the house temporarily while she sorted things out at school, given the whole mess with her mother. Our quiet moments together, sitting at the kitchen island, drinking coffee in the mornings before she left for classes, it felt like peace where chaos once festered. "I can't believe she had the nerve to show up like that," Savannah said one evening as we sat outside, the late autumn leaves fluttering across the yard. Her tone shifted immediately from disbelief to contempt. "She thinks you're just going to help her like nothing happened." I sighed, staring out at the yard, once meticulously tended, now just natural. It didn't bother me that much anymore. Gardening didn't carry the same importance when it wasn't being critiqued. "I'm not worried about your mother anymore," I finally said, slowly. "Her choices don't define our future. My focus is on moving forward." Savannah raised her coffee mug in a mock toast. "To moving on, then." We clinked our mugs together before settling into a comfortable quiet, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with words. Life after Layla had its moments of adjustment. I won't lie and say it was all seamless, but there was something freeing in the rebuilding process. I got back into runs on Sunday mornings, found joy in hobbies I hadn't touched in years, reconnected with Savannah in a way that I'd always wanted. All the complexities, the layers of manipulation, and the blurred lines of responsibility, they melted away. We just had each other and a quieter, more honest life. Some days, I'd hear from mutual friends about Layla's rapid downfall, her boutique business nosediving. Travis nowhere to be seen. She turned into a ghost, no longer the calculated, high society woman who craved validation. The consequences of her choices carved her into someone else. It was only a matter of time before the rest of her life caught up with her. But that was her burden to bear. All I knew was that I'd finally closed the door on a chapter, no looking back. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed the story, remember to like, subscribe, and comment on the video for more stories like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. If you have any similar stories to share, leave them in the comments and we'll make sure to bring them to life. Thanks for watching.